And today was a prime example of why not you look, there was a major screw up, come out and say, we made a mistake.
More Liberals resigning. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today, we've got two Liberals that'll be leaving Carney's party. We've got more CBC pundits criticizing Mark Carney. This is becoming a daily occurrence at this rate. We've got a bad guy that was allowed into Canada, the government taking a lot of heat for that. We've got Donald Trump approving a pipeline to Canada. That's a thing. Let's jump into this. Starting this episode off, we got this one from the Toronto Star. Integrity Commissioner says her office is overwhelmed with complaints about the federal government. Interesting. The regime is to investigate wrongdoing and protect whistleblowers within the federal government is on the verge of collapse under a relentless surge of allegations and complaints, Canada's Integrity Commissioner says. We've got this one from Globe Politics saying Senate report warns Russia is targeting Canada with disinformation. We got Mark Nixon posting this. We've got gas in Toronto here, $1.90. Says count yourself lucky. It's $2.11 in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver. Personally, me, it's $2.05 for gas. So yeah, Carney's gas tax cut, it just completely blew up in his face because he cut the excise tax. It went down for a couple days. The summer gas came in and now it's gone up like 25 cents. We've got this one from CBC News. Conservative MP Jamil Javani returns to Washington to meet with U.S. trade rep. Canadian ambassador Mark Wiseman is also in attendance. I don't know why he's going down there. I actually don't think this is the best move. It kind of undermines Pierre Poilievre going down to America. He already went there once. Nothing came from that. Then he had that soundbite that kind of blew up and was used against him and the Conservatives. I don't really think this is the best move. And we got this one here. Mark Carney saying there's only one negotiator for Canada after a group of Conservative MPs traveled to Washington this week. Carney does not like people trying to step into his realm. Obviously, he wants to be the one negotiating with Donald Trump. We all know how that's going. Before we get to Donald Trump, we got Mark Nixon clipping this. So this is from his press conference. I showed you the other question. I believe it was a Turkish lady that asked him about his sovereign wealth fund. Well, there was this other question here asking him about negotiating with Trump and, well, basically Jamil Javani going down there.
My question is that do you think that the conservative diplomatic missions to Washington, D.C. help or hurt your government's efforts as you are negotiating with Americans?
Well, look, it's we're both free countries, so people can go where they wish. Any information that's it has not been our experience that people have gone to Washington and have learned anything new.
He's frantically trying to find a nice way of saying this without coming across as looking like a jerk.
Nor has it been that they have learned everything that is either being discussed on the table or where the negotiations are. In the end, there's one negotiator for Canada, and that is the government of Canada. Our interlocutors in the United States are
There's only one negotiator. It's Papa Carney. Basically what he just said. Carney has downplayed or sidelined Conservative outreach efforts on pretty much every file. There's no Team Canada, just Team Brookfield. Yeah, what happened to Team Canada? Now, while we're talking about America, we've got this new pipeline here that Trump announced here, or signed an authorizing order here for Bridger's Canada-Wyoming crude pipeline, as Kirk Lubimov has got posted here. Donald Trump approved this pipeline to take oil from Alberta down to the U.S. This is in place of the Keystone XL. It's a different route. It's a more direct route. It says it will increase Canada's exports to the U.S. by 12%, which is a lot because, well, America imports a lot of oil, so increasing it 12% is actually quite substantial. It says it's pretty much approved on the Canadian side, as it will use some of the Keystone XL pipe, which was already laid, and then Joe Biden axed that. It's a joint venture between South Bow and Bridger Pipeline. No carbon capture nonsense. No one cares about a carbon tax. Just a handshake. Let's get building. So Donald Trump did a press conference on this today.
This is a transborder pipeline similar to the old Keystone XL pipeline.
Donald Trump today signing a presidential permit to authorize a major new oil pipeline to carry Canadian crude across the border, a project that would revive parts of the Keystone XL pipeline canceled by former U.S. President Joe Biden over environmental concerns.
You're slightly different than the last administration. They wouldn't sign a pipeline deal, and we have pipelines going up.
The red line shows you what Bridger Pipeline wants to build from the Canadian border to Wyoming. The blue is the path of the canceled Keystone XL. Once complete, it would carry up to 550,000 barrels of oil a day from Canada and increase Canadian crude exports by more than 12%. The Energy Minister's office tonight saying in a statement, "We are aware of the issuance issuance of permits to Bridger Pipeline, and that the government of Canada remains focused on strengthening Canada's position as an energy superpower. And joining us now is CTV's Ottawa Bureau Chief Graham Richardson. Graham, I want to get your thoughts on that statement, but first, let's get to how this would actually work. What infrastructure would be used on the Canadian side, and what would be different about Bridger's expansion to address some of the opposition we saw from environmental and Indigenous groups with Keystone XL?
Sure, Omar. Let's start northern side in Canada, using existing pipes in some ways that are already in the ground or in storage that were there at the time that President Biden canceled it in 2021. South, it's a shorter route, a more direct route. It does not cross Indigenous land, less controversial, using areas of the states that are already designated in many ways for pipelines already. They think they can get it done fairly quickly once all of the other approvals go through.
Back to that statement from the Office of the Energy Minister, Graham. What do you make of the tone of it, given that this government has encouraged getting Canadian energy to market?
Well, we're in a trade war with the United States. Canada says the United States started it. So they're not going to pop the balloons and champagne that they're sending more oil south, Omar. So they've got to...
Technically, Justin Trudeau started this. Mark Carney carried it along. Then Donald Trump came in and brought in the big tariffs. And then obviously where we're at today now.
Reserved kind of a tone here. But at the same time, yes, diversify markets, go around the world. But at the same time, these two countries remain integrated, particularly with this industry, a critical resource that everybody still uses, even though they're trying to diversify to renewables, and a north-south flow that is very, very difficult to break, considering where we are geographically and where they are.
Just imagine if we could get a pipeline like this going this fast, except going to the West Coast. This could already be in production right now. It could be shovels in the ground, pipeline being built as we speak. If Carney did this as the first thing he did getting into office. Now, speaking of Carney and his team, we've got Jonathan Wilkinson here. He is resigning and going to be the ambassador to the European Union. Not a big surprise here. Nate Erskine-Smith, it's also said that he's going to be resigning or resigning soon. Now, before we get over to some pundits that once again grilling Carney, I thought we'd just show this quick clip here of Corey Hogan in the House of Commons. Here they are again saying life is so good in Canada, we're the best, things are going so great.
But let's talk about the reality that we face right now. How about it? Let's just take a little bit of a look here. What is our fiscal position in the G7? The best! What are we looking at in terms of the investments we're making? Affordability, groceries and essentials, pausing the gas excise tax, CPP contributions down. If they want to tell us what they want to cut...
He goes on to say, tell us exactly what you want to cut. Cut all that nonsense. We can't afford dental care, pharmacare, all this stuff. Cut taxes, cut foreign aid. There's another clip, I'll show it in another video, but they basically, Anita Nan saying foreign aid has only been cut down about 20%. They're still keeping 80% of the foreign aid that was from the Trudeau era. All those segments of far off ripoff, most of those are still going because they didn't just do a one-time payment. These are ongoing year after year after year, often 5 or 6 years for these grants of foreign aid going over to mostly Africa, South Asia, etc. On this episode of Far Off Ripoff, we've got this one here, $150,000 going to Kimberley Process Secretariat. What is this, you might ask? Well, this is an interesting one. We've got the KP Secretariat uses these funds and other donors' funding to achieve its mandate, which is to break the link between rough diamonds and conflict. The KP is an international multi-stakeholder certification scheme that prevents the flow of conflict diamonds and helps protect legitimate trade from rough diamonds. KP contributes to ending diamond-fueled armed conflicts in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in its early years. So they don't want conflict diamonds, blood diamonds, and while that's all well and good, we have Canadians literally starving. Why would we spend $1 on this? Like, we can't afford this. We should be building pipelines, getting rich, and then we can do these virtuous projects that actually have oversight and they're not just money laundering. But in this case, this is unacceptable to spend $150,000 on this when Canadians are skipping meals. Moving ahead, we've got quite the situations, plural, coming out of committee. An inquiry at the Justice Committee got shut down. Listen to this.
Perhaps. Are you challenging my ruling? Are you challenging my ruling?
Wait a minute. I don't want to challenge your ruling.
Not on that statement.
All right.
Okay, I have a point of privilege now.
Mr. Bauer, what's your point of privilege?
I'm a member of the Justice Committee studying a bill. I have a question, a genuine question for the officials on criminal law before we proceed. Will you not allow me to pose my question?
No.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So we're moving on to CPC 4.
Of course not. Wouldn't want to ask any questions, then we might get some answers. Then we had this come out today.
The federal government is under fire after a man with ties to a designated terrorist group was able to land in Canada. On Tuesday, a senior Iranian soccer official linked to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was turned away only after landing at Toronto's Pearson Airport. But the official was reportedly granted a visa to enter Canada for a pre-FIFA World Cup gathering in Vancouver.
Did you sign or know about this visa, yes or no?
I certainly did not sign any documents.
Did you know about the visa, yes or no?
Again, no IRGC member has been admitted to Canada. We will not comment on individual cases. I did not know about the decision. What I can tell you is that the individual, the document was annulled prior to the individual landing in any Canadian territory.
All right, our reporter roundtable is here, and we're going to start with that issue. Robert Fife is the Ottawa bureau chief for the Globe and Mail. I don't know about bureau chief for La Presse. Bob, look, there's a lot of things we still don't know about the IRGC, but when you see a minister or committee dealing with the almost arrival of a designated terror commander in the country, when they fall back on privacy, process, and the passive voice, it's usually a sign of some trouble.
Yeah, look, she's a classic example of what's going to happen in July if there's a cabinet shuffle, because she won't be in cabinet anymore because she's incompetent. And we've seen this, her performance, very poor performances in House of Commons committees over the last year. And today was a prime example of why not you, look, there was a major screw up, come out and say, we made a mistake, somebody approved him to come, we found out when he was in the air, and we revoked the visa so he wouldn't be allowed in the country. We're going to take steps to make sure this doesn't happen. End of story.
Yes. But
yep, they just allowing a terror lord to come into our country. Yep. Now, Carney's immigration minister, Lena, is such a disaster. We got Michelle Rempel-Garner posting this clip here. She's seen as such a liability, she says, by the Liberals that they wouldn't let her get up and answer questions about why she issued a known agent of the IRGC a special permit to come to Canada.
The Honourable Minister of Public Safety.
What a clown show.
Being here, Minister Diab, was the individual in question related to this case issued a temporary resident visa or a temporary resident permit?
Okay, let me be clear.
Simple question.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
Temporary resident visa or temporary resident permit?
So
we know she's not going to answer that question.
Again, as I said, I cannot comment on the individual person in question, but
question.
No IRGC member has been admitted to Canada.
Was it a temporary resident visa or a temporary resident permit?
I believe I've already responded.
For what reason? Why can you not answer the question, Minister?
Again, as we said, we cannot comment on a specific case in question. What is important is that the individual did not come into Canada.
For the benefit of Canadians listening, a temporary resident visa is required for any Iranian citizen to enter Canada. Many do on a daily basis. A temporary resident permit is required for anyone who is found inadmissible to come to Canada for criminal reasons or other reasons. This, according to the Raoul Wallenberg Center, this individual was an IRGC intelligence commander from 1979 onwards. I find it interesting. Liberal members said an alleged IRGC member. It's been well reported they were an intelligence commander in the IRGC. They would have had to have been issued a temporary resident permit. That is a special permit that is from your department. So, Minister, did your department know that this person was inadmissible to Canada before you issued them a permit?
Again, I'm not going to be commenting on an individual case for privacy reasons. What I will say again is the individual had no status to come into Canada by the time they landed. They left. They are back in their own country. We are very much looking forward to learning what happened in this case to ensure it does not happen in the FIFA games that are happening in the month of June.
Oh, that's right. We're going to learn what happened in this case. It doesn't happen again. She's so incompetent. As Robert Fife said, she's out. In the next cabinet shuffle, she's 100% gone. Carney's going to bring in some of his A-team members and shuffle out some of these people that are clearly not getting the job done.
is a government that we just had an Auditor General's report that showed massive fraud in the student visa program. I mean, get it together.
The individual itself, correct me if I'm wrong, never set foot in Canada as this person was denied entry to Canada. The government might say it's a sign that the system actually worked.
Oh, come on.
I'm just saying that they might say that. What I would like to hear is your answer to
They issued a permit to this person, even though he's clearly has ties to, significant ties to the Iranian regime. Come on. This guy was issued a permit. They made a conscious decision. I mean, to be clear, the process for issuing one of these permits is weighing whether or not somebody who would otherwise not be allowed to come into the country, like a terrorist, should be allowed to come into the country if the public interest would benefit. So they made a decision. They said, yeah, this guy should come into the country. Then he was allowed to board a plane. And during that time, that's when the news stories broke. It wasn't the government who proactively did this. It was journalists who said,
yeah, so that's it. So the journalist broke this story, and then the government had to react. And this journalist here has the audacity to say, oh, but the system's working. Are you kidding me? And to finish off this episode with a feel-good story, we've got Vernon Lidstone. He's a retired prison chaplain. He's 82 years old, and this weekend, he just powerlifted 441 pounds to raise money to replace his church's heating system. Age is just a number. This is so impressive. The most I ever deadlifted was 440 pounds, and I ended up ripping my back deadlifting that much weight, and then went on to stop deadlifting for quite some time. Lidstone said his fitness started 12 years ago at the ripe young age of 70. When he heard Patrick Ainsley, a fitness instructor who was really passionate about making seniors strong on BBC, I got in touch with him. I cut a long story short. Eventually he came over, and he now conducts the fitness class in the church twice a week with seniors with a passion for making us strong. Wow.